What's up, everybody? In this video, I want to cover 10 important tips that I wish I had known when I'd started reselling. Stick around to the end to what I think is the most important tip, which is going to be tip number 10. Let's go ahead and get started. What's up, everybody? My name is Big Mike. I started my reselling journey in September of 2022. It's been about 5 months. I started my reselling journey mainly out of some curiosity, but also I have 2 children that have trips with their respective groups going to both Universal and Disney World this coming spring, and I knew it would take a tremendous toll on my pocketbook. And after watching multiple YouTube videos, I felt like reselling may be a thing to do to help raise money for that. So to start off with the 10 things that I feel like are really important for resellers to know that sometimes I wish I had known when I started. Number 1 is that they are going to do a verification process. Now, the fact that I didn't know this is pretty much a brainless move on my part, but obviously they had to verify who you are, because if you're making money, they're going to have to know your bank account information. They're going to have to know who to send the tax notifications to, things like that. So keep in mind that there is kind of a somewhat lengthy verification process, one in which they'll eventually ask for your bank account information. You can't get paid unless they know where to send the money to. So they will ask for your bank account information. They will send you a couple of small deposits of a few cents or something like that, just to verify that you received that money, and then they will get that account set up for you. Tip number 2 ties into number 1, which is taxes. A lot of things that people don't understand is that, your employer, when you work a regular 9 to 5, also pays taxes on you. Well, whenever you sell on eBay, you're paying your employer taxes and your personal taxes. So it's what they call self-employment. And so you probably need to set aside about 25% of what you make on eBay into a separate account, just to make sure that your taxes are covered. It seems like a lot. Usually if you play your cards right, you make sure that you write down your mileage that you use for shipping, write down or make a notification, hold on to receipts if you use thrift stores and things like that. Those things will help count towards a tax deduction at the end of the year. But I would still hold on to about 25%. Set aside a different bank account, savings account, move that into an account where you don't see it, you don't touch it. Just let it sit. It'll be tempting, especially if you're struggling to make ends meet, but you don't want to be beholden to the IRS when they come knocking. Number 3 is shipping. Shipping is still somewhat of a struggle for me, even week to week, 5 months into it. Shipping is a long process that it takes to learn, and some of it you're just going to have to learn by trial and error. That's just the way I've learned it. I could do video after video after video on the shipping process. That said, the first thing that you need to consider is, what are you going to do with your listings? Are you going to provide free shipping? Are you going to provide a flat rate shipping? Are you going to provide, make the customer pay full shipping? And even when you make the customer pay full shipping, are you going to pass your shipping savings that you get through eBay on to your customer? I choose to include shipping for the most part in my listings, because the thing is that sometimes the customers don't understand. Even if they're going with free shipping, they're still paying for shipping. Shipping, the cost will always be there. There are certain avenues that I don't charge shipping on, like if you get into CDs, DVDs, people are used to seeing free shipping there. But I think for the most part, customers understand that shipping costs are going to be included somehow. The way they're going to look things up on eBay, for the most part, is they're going to look on the listing, the listing drop-down menu, and saying cheapest item plus shipping. And so you'll show up just right there with all the free shipping people if you're charging for shipping, as long as your prices and your price point reflect that. So I tend to include shipping with my cost. Now, if it's a fixed quantity like media mail, at 1 pound, it's going to ship out at a certain rate across the country. So keep that in mind. Secondly, when it comes to shipping, there's so many options available. Are you going to use the U.S. Postal Service? Are you going to use UPS? Are you going to use FedEx? I personally use the U.S. Postal Service probably more than any other service, but I also include a UPS option because some people still prefer to get their items via UPS. You can use FedEx. I tend to not to because I have to drive 20-30 minutes to get something sent to FedEx. So I tend to avoid FedEx. FedEx is great for huge bulky items. I tend to avoid huge bulky items because shipping can be a real pain, but there's a lot of people that make a lot of good money off of shipping huge bulky items if that's what you want to do. Number 4, I would say it's tempering your expectations. In other words, maybe right away don't quit your day job. I say this because I didn't quit my day job. I'm a very part-time reseller, and when I say very part-time, I spend a lot of hours doing it. In fact, I probably spend close to another full-time job doing what I do. But I do it part-time because, look, to start off with, it takes a while to get your business established. I am just now starting to get some wings under my feet with listings, and I'm 5 months into it. You'll watch a lot of YouTubers, and there's nothing wrong. They're excited about what they do. They need to get clicks. They need to get all this other stuff. But you got to understand that eBay is a huge platform. There's money to be made, I promise you. But don't expect the get rich quick thing. It's a lot of hard work. I'll spend hours outsourcing. I will spend hours listing, dealing with customer interaction. Understand that your customer is like the most important thing to you. So don't ever neglect customer interaction. When they're interacting with you, interact back. Understand that not every single item that you send to your customer is going to be perfect for them, and you'll get return requests. You'll get I've only dealt with one negative review, and it was an unnecessary review. I got it removed, but your customer is your number one thing, and it takes a while to establish yourself in the business. So temper your expectations. Along with tempering expectations, there are so many different approaches to reselling. It's mind-boggling. You can pull up a YouTuber and a different YouTuber, and you're going to get a different approach just about every time you pull somebody up. I see some people like, hey, you got to scale your business. You got to make it to where, this one guy over here is making 7 figures. This other guy over here says, you need to focus on this one thing. Well, if you're going to scale your business where you're making 7 figures, you do have to have one area of focus. I do firmly believe that because it's time consuming. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. But you also have to understand that you have to understand your market, and your market will determine how big your business can really get. I live in a really depressed area. I'm not saying that my business can't get bigger, because it certainly can. I'm choosing to keep it a little bit lower right now just because I work a regular 9 to 5. But I like to have it established that if something ever happens with my regular 9 to 5, I can step up my game and move to full time rather easily. Number 5 is sourcing. How are you going to source? Where are you going to source from? I started out watching a guy that sourced primarily from yard sales, which was awesome. It was September, heading into the fall season. Yard sales are a great place to source. So, yard sales are one of those places that I use. Right now, middle of winter, not many yard sales are happening. So I've had to broaden out. I use thrift stores a lot. Facebook Marketplace can be hit or miss because most of the time on Facebook Marketplace you deal with the people that know what they have, and they're resellers too, and they're trying to make a certain amount of money off of their product. Can't fault them for it. But that said, Facebook Marketplace can be a resource. Flea markets, if you're starting out, flea markets can be a tough area because the thing is, you've got to keep an eye out. You have to have a good eye for what you're looking for. So utilize your equipment with you. eBay has things where you can look up comparisons. You'll hear eBayers always use the word comps. They're called comparisons. You're comparing sell-through rate. You're comparing what's sold versus how many are listed. Those things can be truly helpful to you when you're starting out. But also, when I'm out yard selling, I don't like pulling out my eBay app in front of other people. I don't like necessarily letting people know that I'm a reseller. Some people love resellers. Some people absolutely disdain resellers. And both of them have good reasons to feel that way. So I'm not going to ever knock anybody for it. So I choose to kind of more freestyle when I'm out yard selling. If I'm only paying $1, $2 for something, I don't mind taking a $1 or $2 hit if something's not right. But now if they're charging $15 for something, then I want to look it up and check it out and make sure that I'm getting the bang for my buck that I need on my end. Because you do also have to understand, you're not running a charity. You're running a business, so you've got to make sure that your margin is going to be good. Make sure that the resale rate is going to be good enough that you're not going to be sitting on it for months and months and months and months. You can do that if you got the space, but you have to be careful with it. Number 6, I kind of mentioned this in my previous one, is comps or comparisons. Comparing your items that you're looking at to others is the most valuable resource I think eBay provides. They even have Terapeak, so if you're using your computer, you can actually do market research for the past year on your product. So you can see what it's sold at, how many different sellers have sold the item, what price point they sold it at. These things are invaluable. But even on your mobile app, you can pull up within the last 3 months of what's sold. And that's typically what I use when I'm out in the field doing my sources. I will pull it up. I will look up first. I will see how many are listed. It may be an item where there's 1,500 listed. And then I go and I look at the solds. And so you go into the app and you'll pull up the little thing, the filters, and say what's sold. You click on that, and then it will show you how many have sold in the past 3 months. And it'll kind of give you a general idea as you scroll through what prices they've sold at. So if you have an item that has 1,500 listings and only 10 of them have sold in the last 3 months, rest assured when you buy that item, unless you price it at the very bottom of the market, you're going to be sitting on that item for a very long time. That is something I wish I'd learned a little earlier on. I still have products that 5 months ago I'm still sitting on, and I'm sure some of them that I even buy now will be sitting on for a while, because sometimes I purposely choose those items because I know they can sell a little bit higher, but I have to sit on them. But if I'm going to have to sit on it for a while, I make sure that the item that I'm buying is small enough that I don't mind sitting on it for a while. I don't want to have this giant thing sitting in my house for months and months and months and months staring at it. So if it's something that you can fit into a small tote, maybe it's worth it. But I tend to try to avoid things that don't have a high sell-through, especially if it's a lower priced item. So using your comparisons is probably one of the more important things that you can do starting out and even throughout your entire business life. Number 7 is kind of tied to the previous ones as well. Focus on quality when you're starting out rather than quantity. It has taken me some time to develop an eye for things. And so if you run out and you just buy a whole bunch of stuff expecting it to sell on eBay, and not really paying attention to the quality of the item, either A, you're going to be sitting on the item for a while, even if it is quality, because you haven't checked your comparisons. Secondly, if you don't look closely at the items, sometimes you get items that are broken. Now, when I'm yard sailing and I'm buying electronics, if it's $1, $2 item, I'm not going to sit there and say, hey, can I plug this in and check to see if it's still working? To me, that's kind of the risk reward of yard sailing. But if they're asking $20 for an item and you just buy it, like let's say it's like a VHS DVD recorder, and you buy it, there's money to be made in DVD VHS recorders, but if you're dropping $20 on it, understand that you may be taking a $20 hit when you come home and that item does not work, because nobody wants a broken item. You can try to sell it for parts. If you're lucky, you may get your $20 back, but you're probably going to sit on it for a while. Same thing, I've started getting into clothing. Since the yard sale season is over, I never focused on clothing. I focused more on hard goods, things like that. But my particular market area doesn't have a ton of those things in the thrift stores. So I've started turning towards clothing, and I try to look really closely for stains, holes, missing buttons, zippers broken, different little things that can be wrong with clothing. And I can buy a big old stack of them after looking at them, and then still getting them home and still finding some that had flaws that I missed. Be careful about quality. Make sure you choose quality over quantity, because you may end up buying a bunch of stuff that, first of all, drains your bank account, but second of all, you can't sell. You may be able to have a yard sale and get somebody to buy your seconds. I guess maybe you could redonate to the same place that you bought it from. I don't know. But all that to say is quality over quantity until you start developing the skills. I say skills, just start to develop your eye, because you're going to start noticing more flaws the more you do this. Number 8 is something I'm still terrible at, and probably will be terrible at for as long as I do this, is photography. I mean, if you even notice a shot, this is a terrible shot for a video. But the quality of your pictures will help carry your listings. If you've got something that just looks like it was shot in somebody's garage, and it's something where the market is, like, you looked it up and there's 1,500 listings and there's 300 sold. You got to understand that you're in competition with all those other sellers for the buyer. And so the buyer, if you put yourself in the buyer's mindset, they're looking at not only price, but their eyes are going to be drawn to the listings that have the better pictures, because they look more professional. You do the same thing. We all do the same thing when we're looking for a product. We don't want something that looks sloppy. It just is what it is. It's something that you got to learn over time. Make sure your lighting is good. That is probably one of the more important things. You can buy these softbox lighting things relatively inexpensively on Amazon, but when you're starting out, go outside when it's daylight. Daylight is the best lighting that you can use out there, and so it's a free resource. It happens every 24 hours. The sun is going to come up, and you're going to have daylight that you can go and take pictures. But once you can start spreading out, you can get you some softbox lighting relatively inexpensive on places like Amazon. Your phone, most phones today have very quality cameras. You don't have to go out and buy a fancy mirrorless camera or DSLR camera. Just about every shot that I take is with my iPhone. Number 9 is the listing process. The listing process when you're starting out can be really tedious. eBay has some clever tools in there. When you look up an item, they will also offer you an option to say, sell one like this. I sometimes still use that. You have to be careful with the sell one like this, because sometimes people don't pay attention to most importantly, the category that your item is being placed in. Category matters when it comes to listing, and a lot of times things are miscategoried. And so there's so many different things that can be wrong with a listing. Maybe yours has a slightly different feature to it, things like that. So what I do is, for things that I source a lot, like let's say it's men's shirts or men's pants, I've developed a template that I go in and I do my listing from there. That way I know that it's going into the right category. I have to think about all the little things that make that particular piece unique. And sometimes you will make your item stand out more by doing your own listing, thinking through keywords that are important. Let's say that it's a flannel shirt. Some people will just put a button-down red shirt. Well, you may want to mention that it's flannel because people look for flannel. So when you're doing your listings, even when it comes to electronics, you want to be specific about your item, because first of all, you don't want your customer coming back saying item not as described. That is a terrible feeling to feel when your customer sends that to you, especially if they go through eBay for the remedy, things like that. You have to be careful on how you list things, not to be scared of listing, because there's millions of listings out there that are probably terrible listings. But if you want your business to last in the long run, you have to make sure that your listings are solid. Make sure that you identify flaws that you see in it already. That way the customer knows what you're buying. Imagine if you're the customer. This even goes to shipping. Even when you're shipping, put yourself in the customer's shoes. How would you want that item to be received? How would you feel if you got an item that looked a certain way, and then when you got it in, it wasn't what was advertised? You'd be upset, right? That's how you get negative feedback. Make sure that you're very clear on your descriptions. Finally, number 10, and I believe that this is the most important thing that you will do as a reseller, and that is be a student. Study. I like to watch general resellers. I'm still a general reseller. I sell just about anything that I can get my hands on that can turn a profit, as long as I know what I'm doing. But understand that it's important to learn from people that are especially in niche markets. So if they deal with clothing, things like that, watch them, study them, because they're going to give you tips that I couldn't give you as a general reseller. They know clothing far better than I ever will. They have 10, 15, sometimes 20 years selling on eBay and clothing. Listen to them. Somebody that deals with electronics regularly. Be a student. Don't just watch a general reseller and say, hey, this is what sold this week. Watch other resellers that focus on a certain area. You're going to learn a lot, and there's a lot to be learned. Be a sponge. This is absolutely the most important thing that you can do as a reseller, is you're going to be a lifelong learner. That's how my business has picked up. I'm still not going to be wealthy in any shape or standard anytime soon. I don't plan on ever being wealthy from eBay, but my business has grown from being a student. Be a student. Always learn. There's plenty of YouTubers out there. There's plenty of information. Learn to decipher good information from bad information. If they're telling you that you're going to make $1 million in a week on eBay starting out, they're looking for clicks. But you can still learn things from those people. So I always try to take the bad out, learn the good, be a student. Always think critically, and things will work out in your favor in the long run. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you wouldn't mind, like, share, subscribe. If you've been a long-time reseller and you think of anything that I maybe said wrong, feel free to leave something in the comments. If there's something that you agree with, leave something in the comments. If you're contemplating being a reseller, go ahead and feel free to get into the comments. I'll try to help you out as much as I can along the journey. With all that said, I love you guys very much. And laissez le bon temps rouler.